Chop, the original Guillotine League podcast. Everything you need to know to avoid the chopping block. Chop is brought to you by GuillotineLeagues.com. Now, your host, Paul Charchian.
Hello and welcome to our first waiver wire edition of Chop, the Guillotine League podcast. Really excited that you're here and presumably you survived week one. It's ignominious, but not impossible to get the chop in week one, even if you follow the advice of my co-host, Brian Johnson. Hey, buddy, welcome back. Good to have you on the show again every Tuesday like it has been for 6 years.
What up, Charch? Let's run it back. We got to give the people some good bidding advice. Now, you sort of get, I won't say mad at me in the past, but I'm a penny pincher early weeks, and I throw out a lot of $0 advice, which you don't like a lot. But I won't do that a lot today, I promise. But we'll get into the weeds a little bit. How people tend to let's just say overspend in week one on some of the big names we'll be talking about later. But I'm here to mitigate that spending. That's my main goal here.
Yes, you are a Guillotine League miser of the first order, and you're not wrong. It's all about figuring out when to push in your chips, and some people need to push them in now. And then it's a matter of how much do you put in. But at the end of the day, the easiest way to win your Guillotine League is to have the most money at the end of the year. So you have to be careful. It doesn't help you to go to your grave with $1,000. That's, that doesn't do you any good either. And you'll be spending all off season thinking, I should have spent some money just to stay alive and give me some options down the road. We're here to try to find that balance. I've got a couple of key takeaways from week one for you, Brian.
All right.
Breaking
news, by the way. Sorry for now. George Kittle placed on IR. So don't bid on George Kittle if he's out there. Not bid on George Kittle.
That is a bummer. And we're going to later in the show, we're going to give you, first of all, if I had the Peacock sounder, I would do it right now. Somebody repeatedly said this show and in Fantasy Football Weekly and in writing on fantasylife.com, go get Juwan Johnson. And we're going to talk more about him later on in the show and what about his viability, which I think there is some. And that might be the ideal replacement if you need one. One of the two big takeaways from week one for me, Brian, and we've talked about it before, rushing quarterbacks are just, it's such a guillotine hack when you've got a good one. Josh Allen, 39 points. Lamar Jackson, 29 points. Jalen Hurts, 24 points. Jaden Daniels, 20 points. Those guys all went in the second round of Guillotine League drafts. And right now, they feel like first rounders. It's hard to get chopped when your quarterback's going for 20 to 40 points. That's an enormous advantage. And even if you get a dud game or an injury like Xavier Worthy, those guys help you overcome it. I think we're going to find, Brian, that future drafts, either drafts that you're doing this year as you start up new Guillotine Leagues, which you can do every week of the season, or for next year, I think especially those four big name rushing quarterbacks are going to be first rounders in the future.
Oh, what about Daniel Indiana Jones? Has he not worked his way up into that tier? But yeah, for sure. The rushing is such a huge edge. And look at Caleb Williams on Monday night. It was absolute garbage from a reality standpoint. He had like one good drive, but the rushing certainly saved Caleb Williams and all his managers. But yeah, rushing
tier two. Yeah. Your
rushing
tier two
gotta have
rushing quarterbacks were good too. Justin Fields, 30 fantasy points. JJ McCarthy, 22 fantasy points. Daniel Jones, 30 fantasy points. Those guys were taken respectively in ADP rounds 7, 12, and 14 for Daniel Jones. In many cases, Daniel Jones was the last quarterback taken in Guillotine League drafts and even a free agent in a handful. The only mobile quarterback who flopped was Bo Nix, and we'll talk more about him later. For those people that took the approach that said, I'm going to slough quarterbacks so I can get by with Tua or Sam Darnold or Joe Flacco or Geno Smith or Bryce Young or CJ Stroud or Trevor Lawrence, I'm impressed you're still watching this show.
Hey, Geno had a pretty good game, right? 300 plus yards.
Yeah, that's not bad.
He was okay. It wasn't Sam Darnold's fault, game script. It did Sam Darnold in.
Yeah, we'll go with
coaching.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We won't talk more about Sam Darnold.
Takeaway number two, my big takeaway number two from the opening week, Brian. Mostly, the running backs fared well. Yeah, we talk a lot about running back as the most volatile position, and long-term, I'm confident it will be because it always is. But just one running back is going to appear in our list of top 10 most chopped players, which we're going to get to later in this show. Mostly those early round running backs, they all did well. If you invested in an early round running back, at least through a week, you got paid. Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, with some drama going into the game. James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Bucky Irving. And even like Devon Achane and Jahmyr Gibbs salvaged bad days for their entire teams by doing something. Achane got in the end zone. Jahmyr Gibbs caught a bunch of passes, salvaging some bad vibes from their teams. So for the most part, at least through 1 week, those early round running backs, Brian, ended up being good investments.
Much better investments than a certain wide receiver that I feel like is going to probably top this list that we're about to get into.
Yes.
The most chopped players on the week.
We are good. Yes. We will go through our 10 most chopped players, and there's some big name wide receivers that are going to be in it. I don't want to say too much. This time of year, nothing more important than self-evaluation of your Guillotine League roster. So if you can't establish how desperate you should be right now, you can't bid correctly. If you cruise to victory, ask yourself, okay, easy victory, but is that repeatable? Did I get a lot of volume? I mean, volume is such a good indicator for Guillotine League success. Did I get a lot of volume from my players, or did I get bailed out on some fluky stuff on low volume guys? Like Aaron Jones was weirdly low volume. I don't think it's that weird, actually. We talked about Aaron Jones a lot as somebody who's going to lose a lot of work. Aaron Jones was sitting on a really bad game, and then he caught a bomb touchdown, which is not something he's going to do very often. Isaac Tesla scored a touchdown despite only seeing 3 snaps in the game. It was a gorgeous touchdown, too. I wish Thor was here for that. So ask yourself that kind of question if you had easy victory. If you struggled but survived, then I think, again, you look at the volume and go, okay, did I get to have high volume players who just didn't happen to put it together? High volume players usually over time are okay. So you got to try to figure out what your level of desperation is. And then if you got hit with injuries this time of year, Brian, really tough. George Kittle, you mentioned, went on IR. Brock Bowers, Drake London, Xavier Worthy's going to miss a month. Juwan Jennings has got a shoulder injury. Mostly, your backups aren't good enough to fill those spots, Brian. And that means you need to go spend to get an adequate replacement because you probably don't have one on your bench. You might, but you probably don't. And that might be a reason to creak even Brian Johnson's purse strings a little bit.
It is. That is really the only way. Like, if I'm making any significant bid, and at this point, we'll get into more specific bids pertaining to certain players, but yeah, I'm only spending any significant money if I have a hole that's basically there because of injury or someone just looks really, really bad. I can't think of anyone off that, but but right now it's all about injury. So, like you said, odds are you do not have a replacement player, replacement level player on your bench for a starter in an 18-team Guillotine League. So if you have one of those guys, Xavier Worthy, certainly George Kittle, you need a tight end now. So I'm looking at the top tight ends available. And if Juwan Johnson is out there, you got to spend a little extra on him. I love your guy, Charch. But yeah, totally with you there, 100%.
All right, in a minute, we're going to get to these 10 specific players. But before we get to them, because we can't know everybody who's been chopped in your Guillotine League, Brian, let's talk about broad bidding guidelines. There are a lot of people listening to the show that have never been through a Guillotine League waiver wire and have no frame of reference. Should I be spending $5, $500, or all $1,000, which I've seen happen, where people spent all $1,000 on one player in week one.
Who was that? I remember that. It was like an expert
I won't say his name because he is
who is the player?
Industry, and he's a good dude.
It was like Christian. It wasn't Christian McCaffrey.
It was Christian McCaffrey.
Was it?
Yep. It was Christian McCaffrey. Spent $1,000 on him in week one. But that's the nuances of the Guillotine League. It goes to show you this is a different beast, and you have to change your thinking. All right, Brian. Let's talk about 3 tiers of players, and let's talk about the kind of bidding that you do for those tiers of players, assuming you need help. First, let's go to what I call end game players. These are players that are so good. If you're playing in December, you're still starting these players. Puka Nacua, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, to use just receivers as an example. The rushing quarterbacks that we talked about. End game players, Brian, talk to me about your bidding range on these elite players, just broadly, on how much you're bidding at this stage of the season on those guys.
Well, it's important to mention about endgame players that players of those ilk that you just mentioned, they could become available again. It's not this is the only week that they're going to be there. So people are going to spend extravagant amounts on these players, and I'm not saying you shouldn't bid on them. I call like slip through the crack bids. I'll put on these elite players, but again, like you need 8 endgame players at the end of the game, so you can't spend too much on just one right now. And that one, he might keep you alive for the next couple weeks, but if you don't have enough FAAB towards the end of the season, you need to be able to outbid people on other end game players. And if you spend too much on one right now, it's just a bad move. And we'll talk about some specific guys. And like, even if say you have Xavier Worthy, George, you have like 3 of those guys, like how much you should be spending on an end game player. It's not as much as you think in week 2 right now. You gotta pump the brakes a little bit.
I'm gonna put numbers on it. You sound like a coward. You're not throwing out numbers. For me, these end game players at this early stage of the season, $100 to $200 is
Tops,
my range.
Yeah.
200's the top.
I want them to tie to it like 100 to 200 is a big difference between. I was waiting to tie to specific players we're going to talk about in a few.
Yeah, minutes. And you can do that.
200 tops totally.
All right. Now let's talk about middle tier players. So these are guys that you would probably start for the next like 6 weeks. But at the end of the day, when everybody's rosters are getting better every week, these are guys you're going to have to replace in around Halloween or November. So you don't want to, they're not end game players. So you got to be careful, but they can keep you alive and they can do it at a fraction of the cost. A guy that I frequently use as an example, this is Austin Eckler. You just get your 10 points and just move on, right? And he helps you stay alive. But at the end of the day, Austin Eckler doesn't give you enough upside to be an end game player. So for these middle tier players, Brian, what's the kind of range of dollars people should be looking at?
At this point in the season, it's pretty low. It's under 10 for me. It's kind of a sliding scale as the season progresses. Like you could say right now with $1,000 in FAAB, if I spend 40, that's not too much, but that $40 becomes $400 10 weeks down the line. So you're going to be tempted to spend a little more to secure one of these mid-level players. But again, $10 is tops for me because they're guaranteed to have staying power, and you don't want to spend more than 10 because again, those dollars get more valuable as each week goes by. So just keep the spending, just curtail it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. For me, for middle tier players who can keep me alive, like an Austin Eckler, okay, I will spend the $40. If you can keep me alive for 6 weeks, that is an easy spend at $40 to me, but my range is 10 to 40. 40 is the high end. And what you can't get lulled into, and it's easy to do, is $40 this week, $40 next week, $40 the next week. Now you've created a real problem for yourself. The $40 doesn't seem like a lot until you're doing it every week. And it's easy to do that as you chase mid-tier players, but you have to remember that they're not end game players, and you can only spend on those a few times.
No doubt.
Brian, let's go to low tier players. So these are guys you're going to pick up for 1 week. They're 1 or 2 weeks that are just going to help you maybe get through an injury, or you like a particular matchup. Short-term helpers or just depth guys on your bench. Maybe you want to handcuff or something like that. I'm in the $0 to $5 range for these low tier short-term helpers.
0 to 1. I wish we had pennies because I would go pennies, but yeah, 0 to 1. I mean, you just fire them off. These guys, again, there's not a ton out there right now. The waiver wire is pretty thin in week 2, but again, like $5 on a low level guy, you're going to regret that if you're alive late. Like that $5 can get you Lamar Jackson in week 16. And you might look back and be like, why did I spend $5 on, I don't have a good name to throw out there, but you know what I'm getting at. Again, I'll go $2. 0 to 2. I'll go up to 2. I'll go up to 2.
Okay.
I'll go up to 2.
You're going all the way up to 2.
Yes.
All right. We've twisted your arm up to 2. All right. What's funny? There is a nuance out there, Brian, that I want to see if you're willing to join me on.
All right.
Seasoned veteran Guillotine League managers know not to spend FAAB early and won't do it. They're all like you. I got 17 Bryans in my league. I might get a good player at a steal price because so many people are so obsessed, especially veterans, are so obsessed with saving money that I end up getting a pretty good deal. And this goes into something you've talked about many times, Brian. Guys fall between the cracks.
Absolutely.
And you need to bid on everybody. And if everybody's saving their money, you might just walk out of this week with a really good deal.
Even $1, like put $1 up. If Saquon Barkley was available, he will not be $1 on him. Because like you said, 17 guys be like, oh, I'm not going to it's like a 17-person game of chicken where you could be the winner with a $1 bid. I've won a lot of slip through the crack bids before that I did not think I was going to win. So take the time to do it. Even if you don't plan on winning the player, you just might.
I think to me it's not like $1 on Saquon Barkley. I don't think that's realistic. But you throw
that's
$100
an extreme case.
Barkley, and that's a great deal.
Take a chance. Just throw a bid out there, even if you don't think it's going to win.
The guys who fall through the cracks. The guys who fall through the cracks. It's when Saquon Barkley just hit the waiver wire, and so did Bucky Irving. And there's that third running back, and everybody's got it tiered, and they've got, they're all trying to get Barkley first and Bucky Irving second, and then the third guy falls through the crack. That to me, that does happen from time to time. So bid on everybody, and even some great values. You might get some this week in particular. All right, let's talk about the 10 most chopped players from week number 1, brought to you by Xfinity, introducing the 5-year price guarantee, one consistent internet price for the next 5 years, guaranteed with Xfinity. As we look at our top 10 most chopped players, Brian, now I'm going to note I've taken Xavier Worthy out of here because he got 0 points. He was the number 1 choppy in real life, but he's going to miss a month. And when you miss a month, Brian, you're basically not rosterable in this format. We're just trying to stay alive for a month. And Xavier Worthy may come up several more times between now and when he comes back.
Yep.
All right. So let's go to player number 10, the 10th most chopped player. Cincinnati quarterback Joe Burrow, a 14% chop rate. His upcoming schedule, Brian, Jacksonville, at Minnesota, at Denver. That's the Jacksonville part feels pretty easy. At Minnesota, at Denver might be tricky. Is he, in your mind, an end game player? Is Joe Burrow somebody that can get you to the finish line in this particular style of play, Guillotine Leagues?
Absolutely not, because we just talked about the value of a mobile quarterback. Now, Joe Burrow can be mobile, but it's never scripted, never planned. It's like right now, You're starting Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, maybe Jalen Hurts. Those are like the 4 guys that are viable in a championship Guillotine League. So right now, I'm not bidding much. I'll throw a slip through the crack bid on Burrow, but we just talked about all the other quarterbacks. Quarterback is so deep, even in an 18-team Guillotine League. Like the production we got out of Geno Smith, Daniel Jones. Someone's going to overpay for Burrow this week. It's not going to be me. And like you said, Jacksonville, sure, but then at Minnesota, at Denver, those could be the two of the best defenses in the league this year. They were last year. So I'll put $5 on Burrow. I don't even know if I'm getting asked because I'm going to lowball Joey Ballgame, but I'm only putting 5 on Burrow. I know I won't win them, but I'm fine with that.
The 7 total yards of offense for Cincinnati in the second half against the Browns is disturbing. But you figure they'll rebound next week against Jacksonville. I think the Vikings secondary is still suspect. They churned almost the entire secondary. It's that just because Caleb Williams wasn't able to get anything done against Minnesota doesn't mean other teams will. And the Vikings did give up a lot of fantasy points against the pass. I'm more optimistic about Burrow. Agreed that he might not be quite an end game player because he doesn't have that rushing upside, but I think he can get you a long way. I'm interested in about $20 bid on Joe Burrow. Let's go to our 9th most chopped player, and it's another quarterback, Brian. Dak Prescott, a 14.5% chop rate. Upcoming schedule, the Giants, then Chicago, then Green Bay. Dak played better than his box score would suggest, 188 yards, no touchdowns. And he looked pretty poised to me as he adroitly picked apart Eagles cornerback Adoree Jackson, who looks just terrible. And the Eagles got to figure that thing out. But Dak Prescott, to me, ultimately feels highly replaceable. And I'm not putting down any meaningful money on Dak Prescott, even though the Cowboys are going to have to pass constantly with that defense, we believe.
Yeah, Dak looked better than the box score suggested. CeeDee Lamb, whose fault it is that Dak Prescott is on this list and makes some catches, Dak's likely not on this job list. He looked worse than his box score suggested.
Yep.
But I thought Dak looked really good. He was spinning it, but yeah, there's no rushing upside there. The schedule, the Giants can be a tough matchup. They got a fierce front seven, and it's a divisional rock fight, presumably. So just $1 for me on Dak. And I'm really only interested if there's only a handful of quarterbacks. Like I'm still rolling with Daniel Jones if I got him over Dak Prescott right now, so he's not that enticing to me. So $1 tops on Dak if I need a quarterback. I'm interested, if I'm in the market, but I'm not overspending.
Yeah, I'm in that low dollar range. And only if you're in the market for a quarterback. Agree with you on all of those points. Producer Matt LaMarca noting Dak Prescott, an elite option in points per hospital ball leagues. There's where Dak can really pay off. We got to factor that into Guillotine League scoring. The 8th most chop player, Minnesota tight end TJ Hawkinson, a 14.7% chop rate. His utilization scored 56, which is not great. The upcoming schedule for TJ Hawkinson, Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh. This one took me a while to think about. Brian, is TJ Hawkinson an end game tight end for your roster?
Well, as of right now, he's moved up the pecking order with George Kittle on IR, but we hope Kittle will be healthy towards the end of the season, or even closer to the end of this, or sooner than that, I should say. But right now, not an end game player. There's only 2 tight ends that are flex worthy in end game. That would be Trey McBride and Brock Bowers right now. Those are the 2 end game tight ends. Kittle, we got to see it first. He has the potential to be on that offense, which looked awful in the first half, as we all watch Monday Night Football, looked great in the second half. So I do think Hawkinson is still a top 5, 6-ish tight end option. And if I was the George Kittle manager, I'd probably be looking TJ Hawkinson's way right now. I'd be spending a little extra on him. So in that case, I will spend upwards of $20 on TJ Hawkinson. But
I'm in the same.
There was a lot of Josh Oliver. Was there not a lot of Josh Oliver on the field? I mean,
he was, at least one play of Josh Oliver. He didn't score a touchdown that he should have scored.
I saw a few targets. I thought a few targets went his way.
So here's the problem. Speaking of few targets, JJ McCarthy threw 20 passes on Monday night. He is being eased into the NFL, and there's a point at which the low volume is just nobody can succeed on that low of volume. And the way that I firmly believe Kevin O'Connell wants to run the ball. Jordan Mason had a really nice game for Minnesota. And I'm worried that Hawkinson's going to have inconsistent results because of the low volume coming from McCarthy that could last half a season as McCarthy adapts to the NFL. Could be wrong, but that's my worry and why I'm not sure Hawkinson can be an end game player. But maybe by the end of the year, end game, Hawkinson is in a better spot. All right, Brian, the 7th most chop player, another tight end. Baltimore tight end Mark Andrews, a 15% chop rate. Get a load of this utilization score. It's out of 100. And the utilization report's awesome, by the way. Highly recommend you go to fantasylife.com and check out the utilization report. It's great. Mark Andrews, the utilization report, if you don't know, the premise is it wraps up all the data we have available to show you how the level of utilization for a player. Was this player heavily used in this game or not? Mark Andrews' utilization score out of 100 was 28.
And that's without
upcoming
Isaiah
schedule.
Likely.
Yeah, and Likely out. Yeah, without Isaiah Likely. Yes. And another volume problem. Lamar Jackson threw 19 passes. That's it, because Derrick Henry was rumbling for all those touchdowns and all those yards, and it looked like the Ravens were just going to cruise on the ground, so they played it safe and just didn't throw the ball. Now, they'll throw more. I don't know. Andrews scares me. Upcoming schedule, Cleveland, Detroit, and then at Kansas City. Is Mark Andrews an end game player, Brian?
Certainly not an end game player, but a guy I'm interested in this week. If I need a tight end, again, if you have George Kittle on roster, Andrews is another guy I would be throwing a bid on. Not as much as I would on Hawkinson, but just the matchup with Cleveland. Noah Fant scored for Cincinnati last week. I saw Mike Gesicki got a couple, I think he had at least one or two end zone targets. So that's a good matchup. And I believe Andrews, if I don't have the game log in front of his career game log against the Browns, but I think he's killed them over his career. So even if likely makes his return, I think Andrews is a good streamer this week. So I'd throw $5 on him, but definitely not an end game player. And like you said, Baltimore, they don't pass as much as people think. Last year, I believe they were dead last in passing play percentage, opponent passing play percentage, or I'm sorry, offensive passing play percentage. So, yeah, Andrew's not an end game player, and $5 tops, but I got to be desperate for a tight end if I'm bidding that this week.
Mark Andrews did, in fact, score in both matchups with Cleveland last year. So your memory was correct there. I've got $15 on Mark Andrews. Let's go to the number 6 most chopped player, and that's Detroit running back David Montgomery, a 15.2% chop rate, utilization score of 57. His upcoming schedule is Chicago, which looked pretty easy to run on, at Baltimore, trickier, and then Cleveland. He is not an endgame player. David Montgomery is the number 2 fantasy back on his team. The Lions' new offensive line looked bad. They ranked 27th in run blocking by Pro Football Focus. And Montgomery, he's such a better and more effective fantasy producer when the Lions have the lead and they're just grinding down opponents, Brian. That was not the case here in a Green Bay game in which they got down early and then never really had an answer for. What are your thoughts on a bidding amount for David Montgomery? Still probably flex worthy for quite a while, but not somebody that you think you're going to be playing in December.
Yeah, we'll see how long he's flex worthy for. Like you said, I mean, Montgomery was great last year when the Lions had the lead. They're just running the ball, scoring a ton of points. That was not the case in week 1. And if that's not the case in week 2, we're looking at a whole lot of 3-4 point duds from Montgomery, unless he's going to become touchdown dependent very, very soon. So not an end game player. We've cemented that. And this week, flex worthy against Chicago, but I think I need I hate to use the term gaping hole in my roster to put even a $10 bid on Montgomery. Just I'm not very excited for his prospects this week or this season. The Lions in general right now. I wasn't before the season. So I only got, what did I say, 10 on Montgomery if I'm desperate.
Yeah, I'm much more optimistic about Montgomery, and I actually talked about him a lot in the preseason because he was going so late in drafts. Round 6 of guillotine drafts. Now, right now, it looked wise to have avoided David Montgomery, but if I had told you, Brian, new offensive line, 2 major changes on the offensive line, new offensive coordinator, and that it was going to take a week or two for the Lions to get right, but so much talent on this offense, right? That in time they're going to be good. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think the question is just how long is it going to take for things to gel, and are you going to be alive at that stage when things do come together for this team?
So what are you bidding? What's your bid on Monty?
$25.
25.
David Montgomery.
That's not the full Monty.
It's still probably a little too low, but I think Montgomery he's better than most people's current flex player.
I think you got a good shot at $25, I believe, if you're bidding that. I think you can bid Montgomery.
Okay.
No one's really excited to see his name out there right now. Like you said, he's kind of the guy that just gets buried in the mix, even in week 2, sadly. But he could turn.
We're halfway through our top 10 most chopped players, brought to you by Xfinity. Today's show is entirely built around performances that did not live up to our expectations. Now with Xfinity. Introducing the 5-year price guarantee from Xfinity. 1 internet price, 5 years guaranteed. Life is unpredictable, but the price of your internet should not be. Get a reliable price for a reliable connection. And when we say all in, we mean all in. You get all the Wi-Fi equipment and unlimited data included. Guillotine Leagues are about change, roster upheaval, constant improvement. But no matter what changes, for 5 years, the price of your internet will stay the same. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Restrictions apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. All right, Brian, the 5th most chopped player. We've already alluded to this player once in this show. Denver quarterback Bo Nix. Upcoming schedule at Indy, at the Chargers, and then Cincinnati. And I didn't hate Bo Nix's week 1 performance as much as some people did. I expect Nix to rebound this week. And Denver's pass blocking, get this, Brian. They ranked number 2 by Pro Football Focus in week 1, pass blocking, and he had 8 designed runs. But somehow he only turned those 8 designed runs into 18 yards. I think if he's going to keep getting 8 designed runs, he's going to get a lot more than 18 yards. So I am buying on Bo Nix, and I think this is an opportunity that you're not going to get many other times this year. What do you think about Bo Nix, and can he be an end game player?
He was borderline end game last year, and I'm with you. I'm buying the dip right now on Bo Nix. People have a bad taste in their mouth. So, but he has that rushing upside. Showed it last year. He could, he'd be like a light version of the Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen tier, and you can ride that wave for a while. And I like the matchup in Indy on the fast track. That was supposed to be a shootout in Indy against Miami. The Colts did their part. I like the Broncos' chances a lot better to match the output that Indiana Jones is going to bring, hopefully. But Bo Nix, I'm gonna go against the grain, against everything I say really about not spending early and not spending on quarterbacks, but he has mobility, and I think you can get him on the cheap. So I'm going to bid $20 on Bo Nix, which is a lot for me.
That is a lot for you right now
in week 2. But I would upgrade from my I'm happy with my 15-point kind of not ceiling but floor. But I want to move that up a little bit. I will upgrade my quarterback. I'll go after Bo to get that mobility that's out there on the cheap for sure.
I will too. I have $35 on Bo Nix, Brian. So as usual, I'm a little more than you are. The 4th most chopped player, Houston wide receiver Nico Collins. Oh, first rounder. This one hurt. Utilization score way down at 45. Upcoming schedule, Tampa Bay, then at Jacksonville, then Tennessee. That's pretty promising schedule. I think Nico Collins, we can agree, can be an end game player. We were drafting him in the first round. The catch on Nico Collins to me is nothing about Nico Collins, Brian. It's this brutal Houston offensive line. It was already bad and thin, and then they suffered 2 injuries in the opener, including a season ender to Titus Howard. Gone. PFF ranks Houston 29th in pass blocking in week 1. And honestly, it's generous. I thought they looked worse than that. To me, that's a worry about the consistency for Nico Collins, a guy who obviously can be great. But if your offensive line is this bad, I think it introduces some inconsistency into Nico Collins' game. And we saw it in week 1. And that's my biggest worry on Collins here. What do you think? Am I over concerned?
No, the line is definitely a concern, the offensive line. I will say that the Rams pose a much bigger threat than the Bucs and the Jaguars will the next 2 weeks. But it's definitely a concern if you're willing to invest heavily in Nico Collins, who does have end game potential. Probably not a wide receiver, 1 or 2, but a flex level player in a championship Guillotine League. But again, we're not going to. We'll hope he slips through the cracks. I think people will see the name. They'll get excited. They'll spend upwards of $300-$400 on him. I'll put $100 on Nico. I'll put the low end of like what I'm willing to spend on a tier 1 player right now. But even if I win that though, I might be a little like, did I really need that? Like, I'm only making that bid if I have that hole in my roster. If I had the Xavier Worthy or George Kittle, who, although as a tight end, he was a guy you were relying on to score you 20 plus points a game,
right?
Basically, or with at least a 10-point floor. So if I'm desperate, I'll spend $100 on Nico.
85 for me on Nico Collins, just because of the concerns. He's a great player. We love Nico Collins. On Fantasy Football Weekly, we were talking about him when nobody knew he was. We've been tracking his career. We love him. This feels like a trap, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
The 3rd most chopped player, Washington wide receiver Terry McLaurin, a 15.5% chop rate, utilization score of just 44 out of 100. The upcoming schedule is at Green Bay, Las Vegas, and then Atlanta. Okay, is Terry McLaurin an end game player for you, Brian?
He was last year. He was a top 10 wide receiver, so that qualifies as an end game. It's been a kind of rough start to the season. He had the sit in, so he maybe a little slow to get things going. I mean, in general, we should have touched on this. every offense was slow to get going in week one, it seemed like. I believe like all but 2 unders didn't hit. So offense
I think that's right.
Everyone was a little lackadaisical in week one. So hopefully everything picks up in week 2, including Terry McLaurin. Green Bay, not the best matchup, but I love the Raiders and Falcons coming up. We saw Stephon Diggs have a good game against the Raiders. Emeka Egbuka, and Mike Evans had pretty good games against the Falcons. So some nice landing spots on the schedule for McLaurin. But right now, he doesn't look like the guy he was, last year. So I'm only bidding 30 on Terry right now. I don't think he's going to be an end game player this year. He could prove me wrong, but
it's at Green Bay. I do not like at Green Bay this week. If this Packers defense is 80% as good as they looked on Sunday, this is a tough matchup for Washington. I don't love this one in particular. You're right that it gets easier after that. Las Vegas and Atlanta's, it feels like teams we can win with. Still, he is the best part of a passing offense that's pretty good with Jaden Daniels. I'm going to bid 45 on McLaurin. I think he'll go for much more. I think people are going to bid 100 on McLaurin. But 45 is where I'd feel pretty happy about getting Terry McLaurin at this stage. These guys who have the extended sit-ins from practice, man, it always seems to go badly early in the season, more often than not. Brandon Ayuk last year, I hate it when guys do that. And we should probably spend more time talking about potential slow starts when that happens.
Noted.
All right, we've got 2 big names left for you in the top 10 most chopped players. Number 2, Cincinnati wide receiver Jamar Chase, a 16% chop rate, a utilization score of only 48 out of 100, but he does get Jacksonville this week. We talked about this with Joe Burrow. At Minnesota, at Denver. That one's really tricky. He is an end game player. We don't need to discuss that. The question is this going to be the worst game of his season? Probably. 2 catches, 26 yards. And he could drop 25 points in Jacksonville this week. The question is just how much are you going to bid? I just philosophically, Brian, I can't get myself to bid more than about $200 at this time of year. And I'm putting all 200 on Jamar Chase, who to me feels like just a tremendous opportunity. We always talk about it. Guys are going to come up more than once. Jamar Chase isn't going to come up a lot of times this season. He's probably going to be great the rest of the year. $200 is what I would put on him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go for $400, $500, $600 in some leagues.
Yeah, people are going to spend that much for sure. But I'm with you. 200 is the absolute most I would spend. This might not make sense, but like 250 might even be a good deal. So that would give you Jamar, one end game player. There are a lot of teams that don't even have an end game player on roster right now. So that leaves you
right
3/4 of your FAAB to acquire 8 more end game players. And sure, you might get lucky with one on the waiver wire.
Right.
Nobody, but even with a guy like Jamar Chase, who, like you said, might not be on this list. Again, we always say there's always another chance. Maybe there isn't another chance with Jamar, but spending more than 200, you're really putting yourself in a hole. You'll be fine for the next month, probably. You know, you won't get chopped. You're not guaranteed to come in first, but that doesn't matter because if you ain't last, you're first. But 200 tops. You cannot spend more than that on anyone in week 2. You got to save your money. It's imperative.
All right, let's go to the most chopped player from this week. Not a big surprise. You've had time to think about it since it happened last Thursday. Philadelphia wide receiver A.J. Brown, his 16% chop rate, his utilization score, 23 out of 100. That ranked 85th among wide receivers in week number 1. His upcoming schedule, daunting. At Kansas City, very good secondary. Then the Rams, they get a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Then Tampa Bay, at Tampa. Oh boy, A.J. Brown. Now, obviously he's a great player, but Brian, he does this 3 or 4 times every year where he posts just a stone cold dud game. Last year, he had a 2-catch, 36-yard game. He had a 1-catch, 10-yard game and a 2-catch, 14-yard game. I mean, those are games that get you chopped. Still, super valuable player, obviously. He's a very good player, but there is some concern here with the periodic drop-offs for A.J. Brown, in part because there's a half dozen guys who can score touchdowns for that team.
Yeah, way too many games just end up being Saquon or Jalen Hurts rushing games.
Right.
And we expressed a lot of trepidation about Brown going into the season for all those reasons. And also the Philadelphia defense is elite as long as like their star players stop spitting on the opponents in pregame. If Jalen Carter played that game, I don't think the Cowboys were putting up 20 plus points. So yeah, AJ Brown, not an end game player, just too much of a spike week player in an offense that has so many weapons and a defense that is probably going to, limit shootouts for the most part this season. So right now, again, I got to be desperate for a wide receiver. It's only $50 on AJ Brown, which is wild for a first round pick, late second round pick in Guillotine Leagues, but it wasn't a pick I was making at all. So I'm not spending on him either.
No.
So
I ended up with AJ Brown on one Guillotine League roster, and let me explain how it happened. Scott Fish, our friend, and Fantasy Football Weekly co-host, had this idea to have auto draft, do Guillotine League teams, auto draft 18 teams, and then randomly assign people to each team. And so I got randomly assigned the team that took AJ Brown. I finished 17th out of 18. Barely hung on.
If you ain't last or first, at least he didn't get
that's right.
the Xavier Worthy team, the Xavier Worthy George Kittle.
I dodged that bullet, fortunately. The top 10 most chopped players has been brought to you by Xfinity, introducing the 5-year price guarantee, one consistent internet price for the next 5 years, guaranteed by Xfinity. Brian, the final segment of this show is around sort of regular guys. These are waiver wire guys that may have gone undrafted in Guillotine Leagues, and you will want to bid on them. And so these are not the players who got chopped. These are the players who probably didn't get drafted. Let's start with Daniel Jones, who did not get drafted in a lot of Guillotine Leagues at all. What would you put on him? And I'll note this. This is fascinating to me. Jones just became the first quarterback this century to lead a scoring drive in every possession. Wow. Nobody saw that coming. So let's talk Daniel Jones. How much would you put on him?
Certainly has to be rostered universally in Guillotine Leagues right now with 17 teams, and tough matchup, albeit at home against Denver. So I'm not loving him this week, but unless I'm sitting on a quarterback where you don't need to worry about other quarterbacks, like I have a Lamar or Josh Allen. But if I don't have one of those guys, I'll throw a couple bucks on Danny. No, he's not Danny Dimes anymore. He's Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones. Yes. I love that. That's a great name.
I can't take credit for it, but someone else came up with that. But it's a great one for sure.
$20, Daniel Jones. Rushing quarterbacks. Look, man, if this thing's going to hit, comeback player of the year or your early favorite for comeback player of the year is Daniel Jones.
Hey, why not MVP? You saw my 500 to 1.
I know
ticket.
you've got a ticket for MVP.
the angle there $2. Though was he was still on the Vikings at the time. And I was like, he might. I was just kind of rerunning my Darnold bet, but hey, it's worked out now that he's on Indy because he wasn't going to beat out JJ McCarthy. It seems. Congrats to Thor, by the way, if he's out there. Real quick, Thor, happy for you, buddy.
Absolutely. If you needed a running back, this is not a great week. The best I can come up with here is Kenneth Gainwell. Talked about him on Fantasy Football Weekly. We thought he was going to get in the game before Caleb Johnson, and it was way before Johnson. Gainwell, I thought actually looked pretty good when he was with Philadelphia last year. And, Arthur Smith won't play as rookies. So, this has been an ongoing thing for him. Caleb Johnson's going to get stuck to the bench for some time. And I could see throwing a buck on Kenneth Gainwell. Brian, let's move to our next player I want to talk about as we get into wide receivers. Hollywood Brown. 16 targets in week 1. Rashee Rice out. Xavier Worthy gets knocked out. And basically that whole offense goes through Hollywood Brown now. And that's going to stay that way with Xavier Worthy expected to miss about a month. He's got the Eagles this week. And we talked about you can just pick on Adoree Jackson. And that could be a potential big game. Adoree Jackson gave up 103 yards in his coverage on Thursday night. Hollywood Brown, I think he's going to be able to help you for a while in this offense. What are you putting on him?
Yeah, if available, I'd be kind of shocked if he is available. I'm sure he is in some leagues. He's the new Wan'Dale Robinson or Kendall Wright. Remember Kendall Wright, Charge of the Titans?
Oh, yeah.
He would be like the 11 catches for 49 yards guy. You love those guys in Guillotine Leagues. So you get that safe floor. And that looks like what Hollywood is going to provide. So he's a very valuable right now with Worthy on the shelf and Rashee Rice still suspended. Jalen Royals didn't play. The rookie, they got nothing at wide receiver outside of Hollywood Brown, really. So he's worth 15 to 20, which is incredibly high for this segment. I would say $15 on Hollywood if I needed a wideout.
I've got 25, Hollywood Brown. And the other guy you could throw a few bucks on, Juju Smith-Schuster. If you just want to get your 10 points, last week he caught 5 targets for 55 yards. 10 points. Done.
I like
That's replicatable for Juju Smith-Schuster in this Kansas City offense, at least for a few weeks.
$0 though on Juju. 0.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. You can go 0 on him.
You'll get him.
All right, now I got to go to one of my favorite players who I talked about a lot in the preseason. Kayshon Boutte. Oh, I love it. I've mentioned it multiple times. We're going to come back. He led the Patriots receivers in productivity in week 1 with 6 catches, 103 yards. And get this, 3 of his last 4 games, he's topped 95 yards, going back to last year, obviously, and topped 5 catches, and he's scored in 2 of his last 4 games. Kayshon Boutte, if you believe that the Patriots offense is going to be better, you believe in Drake May, Kayshon Boutte's proven himself to be a legitimate fantasy starter, undrafted in most leagues, and I would put $10 on Kayshon Boutte.
Yeah, I thought Stephon Diggs looked great, which I was happy to see. So I don't know if Boutte's going to really push him for the number 1 receiver role, but it could be 1A, 1B there by midseason in New England. And for those that don't remember Boutte at LSU, he was essentially a blue chip first round prospect. Injuries, other stuff got in the way, but he's back. It seems like he's all put together and ready to go. So yeah, there's a ton of upside for Boutte. So I'm with you on how much did you say? 10?
I said $10.
Yeah, I'll pay the 10 on Boutte too if I need the wide receiver. It was a sloppy game in New England, albeit against the Raiders. It was rainy, so don't look too much into the low score. I think that Patriots offense will provide some fireworks this season behind Drake May.
All right, you need a tight end. We mentioned him earlier. Juwan Johnson is the guy to go get. He was the highest scoring tight end in week 1. He led all tight ends in utilization score, and this is not a fluke. This kid's going to be used a lot in the Saints offense. Spencer Rattler is going to use his tight ends copiously as they're dumping off the ball, and they're going to be in negative game scripts all the time. And because week 1 was a disaster for many tight ends, either due to injury or just poor performance, a lot of you are going to need a tight end. And Juwan Johnson, am I going to get the same thing I got last week? No, I'm not. I don't think I'm going to get 20 PPR points out of him every week. But I think Juwan Johnson's going to be is going to be a guillotine starter all season long. What do you think? And how much would you bid?
Yeah, I do too. He's a guy you watch, and sadly, you don't watch him a lot because he's had a lot of injury history. But he's healthy now, so we're not worried about that. But you see him make a play, and you're like, who's that wide receiver for this? Oh, that's Juwan Johnson. Yeah, he's like more of a wide receiver than a tight end. Really, he has that ability. So yeah, I'm with you. He is the number 1 normal guy out there on the waiver wire. I would bid $5 on Juwan if I needed a tight end, and most people probably do, especially if you were relying on George Kittle.
Yeah, I'm more aggressive because tight ends are it's so hard with 17 teams still left. It's so hard to get a tight end. I would be much more aggressive. I would go $30 on Juwan Johnson. So I'm in on him. Liked him, talked about him in the preseason, liked him a lot. And now to see it come to fruition, I'm buying.
All right.
Brian, this has been a blast. It's great talking waiver wire strategy with you. We're going to do it something close to 17 more times, something like that, over the course of the season on Tuesdays right here on Chop the Guillotine League Podcast.